Good morning and welcome to the NMOP working group. Just closer? Okay. So good morning to the NMOP working group. On behalf of Matt Reshat, who should be online, but I don't see him yet, sorry. There is an echo now, or it's good? Okay. So welcome. This is the first session for NMOP. We will have another one tomorrow afternoon. So the note well, first meeting of the day. So please note that by participating in the IETF, you agree to the IETF process, and you agree that anything that you say on the mailing list or verbally is basically contribution. And you agree that you're going to follow the IETF process, basically. Note very well that these meetings will be run in a professional manner, that we're going to respect each other. And that if you believe it's not the case, there is a process for that. Okay, make sure that you sign that tracker. If you want to go to the microphone, raise your hand in the tool, join the microphone queue. And that's a way also to participate in the show of hands if we do any. And make sure your audio and video are off unless you're chairing or presenting in a session. There is also meeting minutes. Thomas, our secretary, agrees to write down the meeting minutes, but it's a collective effort. Feel free to join and make sure they're complete. Agenda, the intro by the chairs. Then we've got an update from our technology fairy, Mr. Adrian. CMAP by Olga. Then the message broker by Ahmed. The incident management Yang module by Chin. Then two bring your own outage from Deutsche Telekom and Swisscom. Thanks in advance for that. And a wrap up. Any agenda bashing? Okay, so let's proceed. Document status. We adopted two documents. And actually, let me do that. The one on network anomalies lifecycle and the one on the semantic adopted since the last time. And we have the one on technology, which is almost complete, I've been told. The next one, our next target, is the digital map or the CMAP, concept, requirements, and use cases to the ISG. This document made some progress, and we have a big chunk of the session today to try to resolve the latest, or at least a series of issues. We had like a couple of interim meetings one with regarding the cooperation with BBF, another one on CMAP, and the last one on a join interim with NetConf, which made a lot of progress lately and a lot of documents that are normative references for the message broker. Thanks for that, NetConf. We had liaison statement out and in from BBF and the TMF, and we receive a response. Anything you want to add to that one? No? Okay. All right, cooperation with the different SDOs. So the first one is I think I made a mistake. I think it's IOWN. If I look at my notes here, this is Innovative Optical and Wireless Network. Yes, IOWN. So we had a call with the chairs and with Thomas' secretary and trying to see how we could be working together. They are working on a network digital twin. And somehow our CMAP is linked. This is the same type of effort, and we'll see how we could be working together more in a more formal way, I would say. They have like a functional architecture, and they will go into the implementation this year. That's about it. So we've got also a link to 3GPP. Matt.
Yeah, so this is basically, I would say, the work which is starting the 3GPP SA5, that they are working on what they call the network topology data, which is similar to what we are doing in the for CMAP. And the main use case for this work, I would say, on the topology that they are doing there is the NDT, Network Digital Twin. So we see that there is a room to have some collaboration on the on CMAP part to leverage what we are doing here. So the plan is to send out a liaison statement to them so that they are aware of this work. Obviously, people who are contributing directly to the GPP can already do this, but it's better if we give this visibility, I would say, from the IETF to the GPP. And the next one is on the HC. Diego, I don't know if Diego, if you are here. Yeah, please.
Very brief, Diego Lopez, Telefónica, just in case we're not using the Mítico for this. TC Data is a new initiative in ETSI that was formally approved in January. We'll have our first meeting in 3 weeks, the beginning of mid-April, and the second meeting in the beginning of July. TC Data is about data governance, data infrastructures, data semantic compatibility, and everything. Well, the idea is that one of the plans is to work on data semantic models for network management and operation, and there is a clear connection with NMOP. Whatever the cooperation that we can imagine, not only liaisons. It's not only about, hey, we are doing this and you are doing that. Specifically, TC Data has intentions of working on proofs of concept on the one hand and collaborating with open source. Whatever there will be more than welcome. Let's see. We are starting, so.
Thank you, Diego. So, Thomas, last week there was a broadband forum meeting, and you've been discussing the message broker. Do you want to give us an update on what happened?
Sure. I would say the biggest discussion we had at the broadband forum was there is quite some traction on timestamping. And in Yang Push, we are addressing this with observation timestamping and especially about how to index data. And we have described that in the message broker draft that instead of the event timestamp, the observation timestamp should be used. And we are now forming what they call a so-called Tiger team, where we are looking into the timestamping and also the work we have done here to see whether this is helping and addressing their needs or bring some feedback from them into to NMOP. That's, I would say, the main discussion we had.
Very good. And I guess you kind of presented the message broker architecture.
That's
right.
Do
they buy into this architecture? There's a chance it's going to be the same one?
Exactly. There are we have many similar aspects. and we are looking at maybe go on the broadband forum one step back to go back on the requirements on the data collection protocols, whenever we can bring some capabilities into the protocol requirements, and also there are some differences between the two architectures in terms of how the subscriptions are being managed, and that's currently also being discussed.
Very good. Thank you, Thomas. Okay. All right, very good. So next in the agenda, we have Mr. Adrian. Tu pourras me rappeler.
The chairs are making it really hard for us to follow the guidance to be respectful. Yay. This is... Hello, I'm Adrian Farrell. This is an update of where we are with the main terminology draft. Basically edited by me and Nigel. Welcome back, Nigel, and 3 co-authors. Or maybe not. Yay. So a quick refresher of what we're about, some new terms, cross-reference to the liaisons that we've just heard about, and what's happened and what's still to happen. So the reminder here is that this is some key terms. We're not attempting to be absolutely every term that we can think of, but terms that are fundamental to our understanding of network fault and problem management. So the key word there is network. A lot of the discussions have come into service or customer fault and problem. That's not what this is talking about. This is network fault and problem. And the scoping is for use within the IETF. So clearly for use within this working group, ideally for use across the whole IETF. If it turns out that other people like it, that's great, but that's not our objective. So 3 new terms here that we need to look at. This work does appear to be going on and on and on, but we are making progress, so not too wearied by it. We possibly don't need to get this document to be 100% perfect. There's a point at which we have to say, yeah, this is good enough. And although the reviews, some of the reviews have been coming in a little bit late here, they are all good reviews, and nobody should feel bad about sending more comments about the work, because we've got to get it right. So we sent a liaison to the TM forum for information, telling them how to make comments if they wanted to. Obviously, they could also send a liaison, but it's preferable if they just come to the mailing list. I haven't seen anything specific in response to that, but the door is still open. Lots of reviewers since IETF 121, and this is actually really good. And if you think about this in terms of where a working group document usually is in this stage in the cycle, you're lucky if anybody even reads it. So this shows a lot of active engagement, which is really, really good. So what's changed since IETF 121, which doesn't really seem so long ago, but quite a lot's happened. So we went into 121 at revision 6 and made a revision 7 during 121. We're now at revision 12 with revision 13 in my edit buffer. So that's still quite a lot of churn, I think, even if the document is largely stable. What the main things we've done, we added 3.1 on context terminology. That's sort of background terminology, and that section is still churning. I think probably thanks to Thomas and Brad for converging on new wording there. There's still some discussion on the list, but I think that's actually closed now, and so the next revision will capture that. Lot of edits in 3.2 on the core terms. The big thing was that we removed everything to do with system, because that was just, it was a cascaded set of definitions for system, and it was really just irrelevant. And we added definitions for value and detect, and then cleaned up a lot of the other words. To really get a grasp of what has changed, you've got to read the document or look at the diffs. I started to put a list together, and it's just, you know, so much editing, it's impossible to present it. So go read the draft again. What do we still need to do? I still have resolution of some points from Carsten's IoT Directorate review. Nothing too difficult, they just need to be folded in. Resolve some remaining issues with Rob. Rob did a really good and detailed review, and we've done a first pass at converging on that, but we've still got some issues to thrash out. What we're going to do is sit down together tomorrow, I think, Rob, and try to work out where we go, and hopefully come back at the second meeting with just a quick comment at the mic saying, we're done, we know what we're doing. Yeah, the context terminology in 3.1, this is overtaken by events because Brad and Thomas have agreed on the list, and I just need to make the edits. Actually, they're in my buffer now. So I will post -13 pretty soon, maybe even this week, depending on how Rob and I get on. And the working group need to read and re-review and reread and keep commenting until we know that we are properly converged. I don't know if the chairs will want to do a second working group last call or just see that commenting has quieted down. That's kind of up to them. Any questions about this work? Who here has not read it? Thank you for your honesty.
Thank you, Adrian. Personally, I'm not sure a second last call is required because I'm looking right now. We got feedback from IoT Directorate, Gen Art, Routing Directorate, Security. So it seemed that you got a good list of feedback already. So thank you for the next version soon. So the next one is Olga on CMAP concept requirement use cases. So Olga, thank you very much for starting your St. Patrick Day very early with us out of Dublin.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Benoit. And can you hear me? There is some echo here.
We can hear you.
Okay, thanks. So I'll present CMAP today. I'm Olga Havel, and co-authors are myself, Benoit, Oscar, and Thomas. Next.
You have the slide control normally.
Oh, sorry, I do. Yeah, thanks. So today we agreed that the focus should be on the open items. So I really quite quickly present the summary and the current status and refresh and try to focus on the outstanding 8 open issues with the goal of reaching consensus. As you know, the expected contribution for this draft were to have a reference document for the concept of CMAP and agree on key related terms, focus set of target use cases, requirements, and engage with operators in hackathons. Thanks for Terminology Ferry for service and infrastructure maps, CMAP proposal, and we agreed the definition and positioning in relation to the external and how to link to it and some other terms. So we also have, this is the current list of operator use cases, current list of operator requirements, and some of the multi-layer topology technologies that we are looking to do POCs and hackathons going forward. We had the interim meeting in February, and if you are interested in the notes, there were 4 topics, and the notes, the link to the notes is here, but the action items were to add the new requirements and open issues, and a lot of open issues had been closed. For Pierre and Vivek to share the all the information on hackathon that were talked about, the options, how to link external things. There was some discussion about IV passive topology, and we said we'll continue engaging on IV group and communication. And there was a lot of input and discussion at the meeting. There were a lot of updates here. I just highlighted here some sections that either changed the names or were added, but the main changes were to the use cases, and it's really a lot of changes. So the only way is to read it, to review again. We separated enablers from business use cases because they are used and relevant for many of the use cases. We added many new requirements. We added the positioning, CMAP positioning chapter, addition of appendix section for abstract topologies, and there were a lot of changes based on the discussions on the mailing list and editorial changes. And I really want to thank many people, you know, beside co-authors for the contributions and reviews and feedbacks. It was a lot of effort from everybody. So we have 10 closed issues. I won't go through them now, but maybe I did kind of send emails on the mailing list with clarification about all of these. Please, if anybody thinks that some of these needs any further clarification, send your opinion to the mailing list. Thank you. So currently there are 8 open issues still, and I group them here into terminology, use cases, requirements, and others. And if there are any that I missed or that we missed, like during the from the mailing list, please remind me, and I'll add them to the open issues. But these are the open issues currently on the GitHub. So the first one from terminology would be Nacho said, reminded us that RFCA 345 is talking about topology hierarchy, and that we are talking about multi-layer topology. And he was saying that maybe he would recommend to avoid using the multi-layer topology term. And then Nigel was also saying that whenever we talk about layering, there may be issues. So I looked into RFCA 345, and yes, that's correct. They are using term topology or hierarchy or stack. But when I looked at, you know, when layered is mentioned, very often they're talking about layering and layer n supporting layer n plus n minus 1, etc. So 36 times layering is mentioned, only 13 times topology hierarchy. You know, and layering is mentioned in terms of describing supporting relation on the layer overlay network contains nodes, layering information, user supporting different layered network topology. The reasons why we used multi-layer originally is because that was the terminology used when discussing with operators, and there was a specific requirement about different layers being visible and being able to navigate them. And then when we presented it the first time, the feedback from the community was to add two definitions to the terminology, which we added and clarified multi-layer topology and topology layer. Therefore, at this point, we have three options. One option is there are three issues then that I can summarize from this. First one is, do we keep multi-layer topology and add explanation that multiple network layers can be grouped into single topology layer and explain relation to RFCA 345 topology hierarchy? So that would be proposal by authors to keep the multi-layer topology, because we discussed it and defined it, and it is the term that we used up to now, and operators were using layering as requirement, and then just add some clarification. Do we need a poll, Med, or?
Yeah, I think, yeah, we can give, I would say, the room to see if there is, I would say, any objection to the current plan for the authors. I see Nacho in the back. Nacho, I know because you have, I would say, issue this issue. Are you comfortable with the? Okay, so any objection to from someone else? No. So I think, yeah, we can proceed with this plan, but of course this can always be revisited, I would say, as usual process and so on. But we can keep this as the baseline.
Thanks, Matt. The next one is based on Nigel's comment. You know, he was talking about, do we need multiple viewpoints and all of that. So proposal from authors, we can add a requirement for different viewpoints, that we can present different viewpoints via the API. Is there any comment about this? Shall I proceed?
Yeah, please.
Then the third one is based again on the comments. Nigel mentioned supporting petitioning, and there is a kind of issues between petitioning and layering. We are thinking that petitioning can be supported via multiple network instances inside the single network, and the new relationship, which can be supported either new relationship or via supporting relationship with some additional metadata. So this would be a proposal by authors, but we can maybe clarify during when we start doing the model whether the new relationship is needed or not. But we could add a requirement that petitioning should be supported by the model. Any comments there? Can I proceed then?
Thomas,
Thomas.
just a quick comment. So on point 2 and 3, so I think I fully agree on point 2 about the viewpoints. I think that could be very useful from an operator perspective. And on point 3, I think for the partitioning based on network instances, that would work perfectly. I would not go any further than that.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you. The next comment, Oscar spotted that in the last IETF 1.1 version of the document, 0.1 version or 2, I can't remember, he spotted that we're mixing interface and termination points, and then we fixed that and removed the interfaces and only kept termination points. And I suggested on the GitHub to close the issue, but then Nigel thought that further clarification may be useful because he agreed that termination point in this document is the right approach, but there are still some challenges in terms of defining the two. So he said maybe he can contribute and give some explanation, but maybe the simpler fix for us is to bring the not really definition, but like how A345 relates those two terms. So the proposal here is by authors is to kind of refer to A345 and quote what is mentioned there in terms of termination points and interfaces, and that is something we are proposing. And the option 2 would be, as Nigel said, to add additional subsection or some clarification. I don't think Nigel is at the meeting. So would everyone be okay with option 1? Are there any preferences for option 2? Okay.
Yeah, I see Nigel is on the queue, so Nigel, please.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see it. Hi, Nigel.
We don't hear you, Nigel, if you are speaking. No, so there's no audio from you, Nigel. So please fix that, and then you can again to the queue. So we can go to the next point, Olga, and then come back if Nigel started to connect.
Okay, thanks. The next point was the discussions that were going around the network design use case. It was proposed by Sheriff, then Brad had comments, Sheriff incorporated some of those comments, then Med had additional comments, and then now we have Benoit also. So there is a live discussion about this use case. So I think we have option either to keep the existing definition or to ask Brad, Benoit, and Sheriff to work together to get some agreement about the new definition. And I've seen that Benoit just before the meeting gave some proposal, and discussion is still ongoing. So we propose the option 2, that we continue discussion on the mailing list, and that Brad, Benoit, and Sheriff align. Is that okay?
No problems by myself.
Sorry?
So no problems from Brad's aspect. I'm fine.
Oh, hi, Brad.
Olga, in terms of discussing. So.
The first time I heard from Brad fine by myself, and the second time I haven't understood anything.
Yeah, I didn't hear. I could not. So let's continue on the mailing list and see whether we can come up with a better definition of the use case. Next one, Thomas had a comment about during the interim meeting about some of the use cases, whether they are kind of related or should we group them, and whether to replace them with some other use cases. And Benoit was saying that what important is how the new whether we can figure out the new requirements. And I remember Matt saying also we cannot always get the perfect use cases, and we can continue discussion. So we have options work more on identifying, regrouping the use cases. Option 2, which we are proposing, although Thomas, please let me know if you agree, focus on the parts relevant to CMAP API and review if you have enough info for requirements, and in terms of maybe we will never get the perfect category grouping of the use cases, and they will always overlap. Or we can do both. We can continue regrouping them and also improving the part that is relevant for the API. So I don't know, Thomas, if you would agree with option 2, or do you think there is more work on option 1?
No, I think option 2 is perfect.
Okay, thanks. But in any case, we can, if we voters, we can always, and everyone from the community, we can make additional changes if we find some better phrases for the use case. Thanks.
Just a very minor comment. I also agree.
Oh, sorry, Oscar, I didn't.
No, just that we have been working a lot on the use case, and as you say, I also find that some sections there are some overlap and so on. But even if there is overlap, all of the use cases are valid. So I don't think we should block the work by just. But if at some point someone proposes some new, hey, we can mix these two because it's better. I mean, that's something that can be done. But don't block the work because of that, because all of the use cases are valid by now, which is the important thing.
Thanks. Thank you.
And on my side, this is Benoit speaking as a contributor. On the option 1, there is identifying new use cases and regrouping. I believe we could do a better job of regrouping some of the use cases, because optimization is traffic engineering, is etc. So to me, the option 2 is what I care about is there any new requirements that you need to derive from this? Thanks.
Thanks, Benoit. Thanks, Oscar.
Yeah, Nigel, please.
I'll try again. Can you hear me this time?
Yes. That's
Can you hear me this time? Yeah, great. Better than not hearing me at all. Yeah. So just back to the termination point thing, Olga, I'll put some material together. I've got an action from a separate activity to do the same thing. So I've got it twice now, so I need to do it. So I'll put some material together on interface termination point relationship and some relationships to other terminology, which is what the other action I've got is. So I should have that in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, for now, what we said is we would, thanks, Nigel, we would kind of take the quote from A345, but please share anything.
No, that's fine. That's fine. That's
prefer
fine. No
to add
problem
on
at
the
all,
mailing list. Yeah, thanks. The next is about the issue 58. And thanks, Thomas, like you added the new requirements and everything, and you added the text around those requirements and examples, and there was no time before the deadline, so we just added 2 new requirements, but the example context should also be moved to the document. So I think this does not need any consensus. It's just something that's not been finished prior to this deadline, and I will do the updates as soon as we can change the document. Also, Thomas had a comment about he agreed that dynamic parts can be outside of CMAP scope or SIMAP scope. However, the part of requirement semantics, we said that he suggests to lay the foundation to map it as external data. So I don't know if this is the right approach. Current text is dynamic path may either be outside or part of traffic engineering, but we changed it. We are proposing to do dynamic paths maybe outside of the SIMAP, in which case they would be linked to the SIMAP as external data. Is that okay, Thomas, or
Exactly. So I think in general, like the flow data and also the control plane data that pass, we just need to make sure that the CMAP lies the foundation and we can actually associate correlated data accordingly.
yeah, thanks. So this requirement I added today because I thought we closed this topic, that we agreed that passive should be part of it, but we should have a link, and of course not of the real-time network, but we should have a link to the external, to the IV passive inventory. But there are still some discussion today between Brad and Thomas. So I don't know if you agree, like that we still keep it as to be a part, that we still keep the requirement, but be explicit in terms of that we cannot have it in the current topology, just in the proposed or intended topology, or whether we want to change the text everywhere to remove the passive topology and just refer to the link to external information.
Right, Thomas, I wanted just, when I was reviewing the requirements again, I was wondering whether the requirement also wants that basically passive elements, we should be able to map or we should establish how the passive elements are associated with each other, or if it's only about associate passive elements with the active elements with the current topology map. Because if we need to associate among the passive elements, I think just the complexity raises, and I wanted to raise the questions whenever we have use cases which require that. And I think Brad on the mailing list answered some of the questions today morning, but I wasn't able to read everything yet.
No. Like my proposal would be to keep the active topology, and it can be optional, you know, it can be if somebody knows it and wants to document it somehow, it could be in the intended topology, because we added a description of the proposed and intended topology on top of the current topology, you know. So of course we cannot be sure it's in the current, but we could leave it as a kind of document topology that we have, and have the relationship with other things if we are going through different topology layers to understand. But if we believe we don't want to have it as optional, we can remove it.
I'm perfectly fine to keep it optional. If there are use cases behind, let's do it.
Okay.
Brad?
Maybe you can hear me this time. I hope. I'm running out of networks to try, so I think we probably depends on the scope, right? So I did respond just before, so you probably haven't had a chance to see it. But so when you start looking at capacity planning, it depends where your scope of capacity planning is, right? The more you get towards access networks, the more the planning for the access networks is going to depend upon what is the passive plant, right? So if you look at things like HFC and OLT and homes passed, the planning side of things takes into consideration those connectivity items as well, right? Whereas if you're looking at just inter-core network side of things, it's probably not so much as an important aspect, but happy to have the discussion on the use case side of things as well.
To just check a few things with you on this checklist, because basically it's for us to the coffee and whatnot and start a scope through everything, and it's like
even from perspective of just assurance, you know, if we understand relationships between the different layers, and if that information is available, it could be useful to know if there are some problems on the overlay links, how it's related to the underlay, or
Yeah, I think you're just encompassing my response. It does come down to that from an assurance aspect point of view. I mean, you can have multiple wavelengths running down a fiber in the access side of things as well. So you take out the fiber per se, and it may have multiple different cable segments between that. It's going to impact multiple active elements, right? But unless you know that there's a splitter in there or something else in there, you're probably not going to know that there's a relationship between it. But as I said, have a look at my response. I can probably elaborate a lot more different use cases in there. I tried to keep it relatively brief in terms of what I responded with, but happy to have the discussion.
Thanks, Lionel.
Yes, hi, Olga. I'm more puzzled about the word intended, which means something that designers wish it exists. But my feeling about this particular word is should be observed or not observed, but the asset itself exists. So if we know it is, it should be described, such as passive amplifiers or whatever. They are part of the insurance of the network for impact calculation and so on. And to link with the earlier discussion of Thomas, let's say we've not observed this device, but we still need to do computation about the path. So it should be necessary to have some kind of upper layer or in between calculation that is made available by the model, even if the device is not here. So both are true. And we already have data models out in the wild that can do in between and above links between active assets. This is such as connected to part of something like that. So it's more about intended. Sorry.
So sorry, just to be sure, are you proposing also to keep it in the current topology?
Well, just to change the wording, I suggest we keep it, but not to. I would prefer to say active versus passive, but dismiss the word intended, or make intended as an attribute to any device, because this is kind of a production or decommissioning aspect that is said in the intended.
Yeah, yeah. When we defined intended in the document, we said this is the intent of the network topology that cannot be retrieved from the real network, so that we can do, for example, comparisons. But you are right, like from the perspective of even the user-defined links or something like that, those things are not only intended, they also should represent parts of the current. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so Iwa from FutureWeek. So I'm also agree with keeping the requirement as optional, and also so at the minimum we need to know the mapping between to associate an active topology into the resources that are passive, right? You may or may not want to go dive deep into the passive layer depending on the use cases. And also, as of today, we are still debating which part of the passive inventory can be considered as a topological aspect, or more like keep it as an inventory. So I guess we need to do some more discussion and then come up to the conclusion, which can then be fed into this requirement.
Okay, thanks. We'll definitely have to link to your to IV passive inventory with more information. If we have something here in CMAP, it would be just a key topological information, not the details that you have. So I think, Benoit Ahmed, we need some more clarification on the mailing list agreement, or do you think there is a consensus?
I think what I'm hearing is that this is optional, and people want to, I would say, to associate, navigate from the CMAP to the passive, and yeah, so starting from there, double check on the mailing list if everyone is on this position, and try to record it on the draft. So yeah, if you can just wrap up for the next, because we are running out of time for your slot.
Yeah, I'll be very quick. Yes, the next one is Oscar suggested maybe we should list the models that core CMAP should navigate to, and there are also list of Thomas also shared the list of modules that he's interested from the incident perspective. But I don't know, my opinion is like if we list them as kind of these are the requirements, there would be always more, and depending on the use case, we want to know the list. So I would suggest that we either list them as examples or we leave it to the hackathon really, or maybe both, put it maybe 2 and 3, list them as an examples, which we already have in some cases. We are listing examples for interfaces, for SANE, for configuration, etc. But I don't know, like if we are putting it as some kind of definite list, I think that will continuously grow depending on solutions and use cases. So I don't know, like the option 3, maybe leave it to the hackathon. It will definitely be in the hackathon as some examples that we will be happening there, but maybe option 4, if you prefer, we could also list examples in this document. It can be maybe appendix or yeah.
Thomas here. Yeah, I'm also for option 3. Let's keep it for the hackathon so that we can explore.
Yeah. Oscar, are you okay with that?
Not only hackathon, I prefer also discussion on the mailing list. I think not only hackathon is good, but also we can discuss.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, everybody. Happy St. Patrick's. Now I can go to the pub and have my pint, is it?
Thank you, Olga.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right.
Good night, Ahmed.
Good
You
morning.
have the slide control.
All right, thank you. So today we are here to present a new draft. It's done with Thomas Graf. It's an extensible Yang model for telemetry notification. Let's see if I can do this. Yes. So in the previous NMOPs, we presented our idea of Yang message broker integration. We did multiple presentations on that. However, there is a bit of a gap that we're trying to address with this new draft. At the moment, the schema and the data that being exchanged between the data collection and Yang push receiver and the message broker is not well defined. So this is interaction 6 and 8 on this diagram. So 8 is the actual data that's going to the message broker. Interaction 6 is the schema that's being registered with the schema registry. And there's been always the assumption that what you receive from the router is what you're going to send to the message broker as it is. However, in most cases in production networks, you might want to add additional data on top, such that from where did you collect it, which collector, which router that sent this to you, when was received by you, and so on. So in this draft, we're trying to address this, to have some kind of message envelope that is added on top of the message of the data that you get from the router. So the data consumer at the end have a bit more information to make sense of the data that's coming from the routers. So what metadata we need? So we need the network operating systems that collected the data. So this is the information about the OS version of the router and what system being used there. Network platform that is being used. So operators usually divide their networks to subcategories to make them easier and manageable. So each operator have their own way of slicing their network. Here we don't care how they do it, but they want to add that information. So this is my access, this is my core, this is my location X or location Y, and something like that. The subscribe X path. So when you are getting Yang push updates, at the beginning, you get subscription started message, which will contain the full X path that you subscribe to. And later on, you just get the subscriber ID. And this is to save some bandwidth between the router and the data collection. However, in the data consumer side, you might want to see always the X path to avoid costly join operations, to always look up what this ID is. So you do this enrichment early on and you move on with your data consumption. When the data was collected and received, and the operators want maybe to add additional specific data to their use case. So we try to propose a new Yang model, and here I try to color code the different sections of the data model. So the first one will describe how and when this data was collected. So when you receive the message, and then what protocol was being used, Yang push or something else that you have used. Then some additional information about the node that sent you the data. So the address, the port is mandatory, and everything else is optional at the moment. You can choose to annotate your data with it if you have the information, or you can leave it empty. The same information goes for the collector, the Yang push data collection. Section 4 is the session metadata, and this can be extended with a specific protocol session. And I will show in the next slide how we extend this for the Yang push use case. Section 5 is additional metadata. So this is done in a very generic way that allows you to put any string value or string any data value there. So the operator can put whatever information that they feel important for their use case. And then the last one is the payload, which is any data. That's the message that you get directly from the router without any changes here. So this message is meant to be the carrier message that the data collection, the Yang push data collection will push towards the Kafka broker. So it has additional metadata that are more useful for data collection. In the next slide, I'm going to show how we extend the session metadata. This is section 4 with the Yang push specific data. And here it's the enrichment. So here we assume the data collection is able to listen to the subscription started messages. And then for every following message, it can add this subscription information, the ID and the filters that have been used, and the Yang push module version that's been used here. So this is where are going to be more helpful for the consumer. Instead of looking for an ID that doesn't have a meaning, it can know exactly what has been subscribed to and make decisions accordingly. Of course, in the future, maybe we add additional extensions for additional sessions, like if there's something other than Yang push there. But we felt it's more appropriate to do it as two schemas at the moment to keep the envelope generic and then to add additional sessions as we develop our use cases. And with that, I will conclude my slides. So any feedback, any ideas?
Hello, Ahmed. So what you want to propose, if you go to your slide number 2, is a format for the message broker, right? So typically 8 on your slide over there.
Exactly.
Now, if you go to the slide with all different sections and the colors, by the way, it's a great reminder to have a slide number. I'm confused. Why do you need information about the collector? Because you passed the collector already, right? So why is this important to have something about your Yang push collector?
So in production use cases, usually you deploy multiple collectors and multiple sites, and you want to figure out the provenance of the data that came. Did it came through my collection site A or B? And you can make deduction about that. For example, if you try different versions and you want to see the difference between them. So for example, when we update our collector, we usually update one site first, check the data is okay, and then ideally I want to group the data, which show me the data coming from site A and site B, and if they are similar or not. So this is usually, like for operational use cases, it's important.
Okay.
Yeah, Thomas here. Hi, Ahmed. When I was at the BBF Spring meeting, and also we heard it in the interim meeting with the BBF, there is some interest to also support IPFix in this architecture. And I think we reflected that well in the session metadata. Probably in the next iterations, we're going to add IPFix also into context here.
All right. One question on my side. Is this something that we want to standardize? Is this something for which we want to have, you mentioned everything is optional, the groupings there, right? The groupings, is this something that we want to have? Because in a deployment, sometimes people might want to have the collector, they might want to have the metadata, so is this like coming here in the hackathon and telling we're trying to make it happen, or should we standardize it? All deployment be the same? I've got all these questions.
To comment on that question, we do want to standardize it because it's not only about between the data collection and the network, it's now also within the data mesh. We have different, let's say, companies who wants to integrate into the data mesh, and therefore this well-defined schema is very helpful in there. So that's the ultimate aim.
And I want to add to that exchangeability of systems of consumers with a standardized message. That's very important.
Okay, and it was Holger from DT, and somehow this is what I was after. Is this like one operator wanted something like this, or there are multiple ones who have the same requirement? And basically you answer the question behind the question.
Yeah, and one addition, I think that's in early days when we started NMOP, there was a discussion about exactly having a generic structure for this kind of, I would say, aspects. It was Andy who raised that point at the time, so I have asked the authors to reach out Andy, and I don't know if you you get in touch with him to review what you have proposed so far, or is this something which is ongoing? Okay, so thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
This is now the incident. Yang data model for network incident management. Chin. Sure.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Qing, and a great pleasure to meet you in Thailand, Asia. And I want to give an update for this young data model for network incident management. And thanks generosity of the working group chair, we actually has been allocated the working group GitHub to keep track of all the open issue, and we identify in the meeting and also on the mailing list. So you just a quick give update. We made actually we spent a lot of time to try to align with the TMF worker and also terminology, NMOP terminology draft, and so the main change actually we made actually also we clarify relation between the problem incident and fault and also customer incident, and also we add appendix with some descriptive text for example, and so the first actually the change we made is we try to do the terminology alignment actually. Most aligned with NMOP's terminology draft. So you can see we try to reuse terminology defined in the NMOP's terminology draft. For example, alarm, resource, and event cause anomaly. And also we introduced two new terminologies. The first one is service impact analysis. The second is root cause. For service impact analysis, more related to the machine learning or AI, we use this machine learning to evaluate whether the network service is affected by the network incident. So we can, automatically mapping the network incident to the network service. And for root cause, actually, currently in NMOP's terminology draft, we only have a cause definition. The reason for that is based on the early discussion with Brand and who is active in the TMF, and he think we actually think we have many carrier factors. They may affect the events or network incident. It's hard to know which factor will really is a root cause. So so one suggestion from agent is we just define the cause in the NMOP's terminology draft, but we can have a clear definition for the root cause in this incident young data model draft. So here this is what we have for this definition. You can see actually, so we can really judge whether the cause is the root cause, not based on the carrier factor. Really, based on whether this really factor, will affect, will prevent some problem from recurring again. So this is a definition we have, and so these are two terminologies, and we have Brand. Brian, you want to?
No, I was just going to say, I think when we had the terminology discussion, I think we discussed not using root cause because root cause was problematic because you can probably never really identify the root cause. So if you we can have those discussions again, but I think root cause was always problematic. And I think we also discussed probable cause instead of root cause. And we ended up with neither, I think, in those discussions in the end. Nigel probably may recommend, Adrian probably recommends more than me in terms of those discussions, I suspect.
So Brent, so what do you suggest? You want to?
I was just saying, root cause is problematic.
Yeah,
because you can never really get to a root cause, right? Like, even if you have an SFP that loses the laser side of things, unless you actually have an alarm coming from it, the answer is going to be that the furthest end is going to raise an alarm. But the root cause may be laser fail on an SFP, but equally it could be that you've actually lost the fiber. From an active alarm side of things, you can't really tell, right? So the definitive root cause is a problem because you can't actually 100% tell.
Yeah. So yeah. So you have concern for this, root cause to be defined in the incident young data model, or we don't have this definition in the base terminology draft, right?
Yeah, that's just saying that the terminology draft deliberately left root cause out because there's no way of quantifying exactly what is the root cause for most of the events from an assurance aspect point of view. That was all.
Okay, so there are many people in the queue.
Yeah.
So Nigel.
I'm trying a different microphone. Is this clearer this time? Or no?
It is. Thanks.
Can you hear me? Yeah, good. So yes, just supporting Brad's comment there. The problem with root cause is there's always potentially something further down the line. So it could be, yeah, the lasers failed, but there was a design fault in the circuit pack, and at the end of the day, the root cause is normally humanity, unfortunately. so it just keeps going. It's better just to have cause, and then the furthest cause I've got is important to understand, but there's always potentially something beyond it. So it isn't the root. So I think claiming something is the root cause is dangerous as a term, and it's just the most distant cause I've found so far is the one, and sometimes fixing something halfway to the root cause is good enough. So yeah, the training manual wasn't very good, but I've actually fixed the problem for now. So it it's just not a good term to define. That's why we didn't define it.
Yeah.
Lionel.
Yes, thanks. In line with Brad and Nigel, it's more about imputation or primary event and so on, to go to a recommendation system instead of having a definitive insight on the root cause that cannot be seen. So second comment, it's about service impact analysis. Why do you emphasize on using machine learning when we can have other kind of AI techniques instead of machine learning? So that's an open question.
Yeah, I think a service impact analysis we use the AI and machine learning. So this is the one effect tool to perform this service impact analysis. But yeah, we are open to other mechanisms. If you have something in mind that can help to do this service impact analysis, yeah.
So may I suggest that we reformulate using algorithmic solutions instead of machine learning?
Yeah. Yeah, that's that's one way actually we can support a very different algorithm. We can make a tweak based on your suggestion. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thomas, just a quick suggestion on the root cause. Maybe just use another term, either probable cause or causality, and then I think that's going to work for most of us.
Yeah, thanks for all the comments. Actually, I think it seems using this root cause has some confusion. So maybe we make some tweak. So we can take it to the list to see how this how we can choose a better term. Yeah, thank you. Next, Michael. Yeah, sorry, Tom.
Funnily enough, I wasn't going to get up because I thought Thomas might say the same thing. I genuinely, there is, I think, benefit in your description, actually presenting that information. This stopped the problem from occurring.
Yeah.
It is just the issue that we call it root cause because that's not accurate. But as he said, observed root cause, hypothesized root cause, something along those lines gives you more context to what you're seeing, and that is valuable, I think. But yeah, we just have to shy away from root cause as as an ultimate statement.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Good suggestion. Yeah, I think we should be more specific for the, what it means, in this context for this definition. Yeah, thank you.
So we didn't have root cause, Mr. Terry. We don't have like a root cause in a terminology's draft. Now you wanted to have it. We heard that it's confusing. So most probable cause or whatever the new term is. So does it make sense now to move that term in the terminology section? And you saw me coming, Adrian, right? So, or you keep it just in your draft. If you guys could agree with the terms, it makes sense to have it in the terminology.
This is Adrian. It was in the terminology document. We took it out for all the reasons that have just been raised and some. So we can put it back in, but the other thing we found was that this was probably the only place that it was actually being discussed. And in a sense, that was like a customer root cause or a service root cause and not a networking thing. Personally, I've not been able to find a definition that I'm even vaguely comfortable with, including this one. Because this says, if I remove trying to use the network, the problem goes away, but that wasn't really the root cause.
So if I understand correctly, you're perfectly fine to leave it in that document because it's used only in that document and be happy to progress your document. That's correct? Okay.
Rob Wilton, difficult terminology reviewer. So I can understand people don't use root cause because they get hung up on its definition, and I can completely understand that you have these cascading root causes, and what might be a root cause for one thing is not actually what's the underlying issue. Having said that, I think a lot of people refer in general parlance to the root cause of an issue, meaning what's the thing that sort of sparked this off, and whether it was actually the thing that really cascaded it or it's the thing you observed, I'm not sure that matters too much. So I wonder whether we need to be careful of not trying to define a new term here that's not common parlance, that has a very similar meaning and ends up causing more confusion than less. And if we all know what root cause is and it's a bit vague, maybe that's okay.
So you're in favor of probable cause, also known as root cause for some people?
Yes, or causing it root cause, saying we're just having the definition saying it may be other things underneath this is fine. I mean, that would be okay with me. And I don't mind if it goes in here or it goes in the terminology document. But I find it, and in my review of the terminology document, where we're defining or redefining words with different meanings, I find that I think it's going to cause more confusion than less. That's my concern.
Yeah, Thomas here. So to Adrian's comment, I would love to have it in the terminology document. However, I would not go into details about what kind of cause. Just keep it overall like causality, for instance, and show the relationship towards a problem. That would be my take. Sure, will do.
Great. Yeah. Thank you for all the input for this. Yeah, great to see this can be progress. And
can I just make one quick comment? So this is actually kind of a rebuttal to Rob on the basis that some of this language is going to get exposed to NOC teams at some point. We're talking about network management. These people are going to be reading these things. If we're not communicating to those sets of folks, or we're being ambiguous, it's quite possible that some of these phrases will be transplanted directly into network management centers, operation centers. They're going to read this and go, the network's already figured out the root cause for me. That's great, fantastic. But we can use language to be a little bit more descriptive, and it doesn't hurt. We're still providing the same information, but we're being less ambiguous. I think there's value in that.
Does that, so Rob Wilton, does that mean that in like operation manuals, you'll sort of lose the term RCA or root cause analysis and call that probable cause analysis? Because otherwise, isn't root cause analysis trying to get to the root cause, but when it's not called a root cause, it's called, so that's where I'm getting stuck up in this, is that
I understand what you're saying. I think the biggest problem is that in a perfect world, everyone will know that and understand that and have read that manual. And a lot of the times it's 4 o'clock in the morning, someone hasn't had much sleep, and they're probably trying to work their way through something in a very difficult fashion. So being clearer about what information it is we're actually presenting, I think has value.
And do you have issues today when people use the term root cause? Does it cause confusion?
All right, so it's a good
I don't
topic.
want to create it.
So more discussion on mailing would be great. In my mind, the question is, how do you call that whenever you do a postmortem? So think about that and let's agree on the mailing list. Chin.
Yeah.
Because you're on slide 1 or 2.
Still have maybe 5. Sorry. Yeah, we make some update for incident management based on brand comments, try to clarify relation between the network incident and customer incident. So this is just we propose text to address brand comments, and unless brand has different suggested text. Also we actually want to summarize what we have discussed on the list. We try to clarify relationship between the fault, problem, incident. This is really during the the terminology review actually by Thomas. Actually he suggests that we should better align with terminology NMOP terminology draft. So make this clear. The solution we make is try to reuse all the terminology, especially incident, rather than we redefine the network incident. So this is our solution. So we already incorporate all these changes. But in addition, actually, Brian tried to make a comment. He thinks we should make a distinction between the network incident and customer incident. So we we have a conversation with Thomas and also Brian, and we reached the final agreement. We think the network incident can link to multiple network service only when the service SLA get affected. So we will escalate this network incident as the customer incident. So this is something we try to clarify in the latest version. And yeah, in addition, actually we try to we have 2 other issue. The first one is the correlation with the troubleshooting tickets. This also motivated by the discussion with the brand actually, and whether we only focus on network level or we go beyond the network level, should extend to the service level, customer level. So we need to consider some of troubleshooting ticket specification in the TMF. But one of the objectives of incident management is really identify root cause and to reduce duplicate ticket amount. So the question is, should we manage the correlation between the network incident and troubleshooting tickets in the young data model? So here's what we propose. So we can extend the incident young data based model to add additional attributes, for example, ticket number. And so we extend various different RPC. So we allow the incident management system within the domain controller to talk with ticket system at the OSS BSS layer. So this is a bigger benefit is you can build the closed loop at the high level OSS BSS level. But the but the problem is this additional extension maybe only apply to the service level. So we want to make this incident young data model more generic, can apply to both network level and service level. So this base model, we can keep it as it is. But if we really want to support correlation with troubleshooting tickets, so one of the proposal is we can add some example in the appendix to explain how do we support this troubleshooting ticket model extension. Give the example in the appendix. If people think this is very useful, we can separate out to create a new job to talk about this. Yeah. So if anybody have comments, feel free to jump in. And 1 minute. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Another one is about incident diagnosis task list actually, and currently we define the incident diagnosis RPC to identify root cause, and we use the incident update notification to trigger to report the diagnosis status. So the question is, should we define, incident diagnosis task list subtree to report, more information related to the task? For example, we can expand, incident diagnosis RPC to add task ID, and we can see this as the intent-based interface. We use the task ID to, to query more task-related attributes. So in the right, you can see this incident diagnosis task. We list a bunch of information, including, for example, the task start time, end time, and the current status, root cause, etc. I will quickly wrap up. And last, is about service impact analysis. We only, gave the definition for this service impact analysis, but how, but doesn't provide the detail how this service impact can work with monitoring mechanism to get all the necessary data. So one is possible is we can define, resource performance monitoring model. We can break it down into, 3 aspects that you can list. You can discover the resource you want to add, for example, network elements, interface, board, and also corresponding performance metric, for example, some like packet loss or some really associated with the interface. And also we can, define threshold across alert management. So when you define some, threshold parameter, when the threshold attribute get matched or cross the threshold, you will apply this profile. And also we can define the monitor task to allow you to, periodically to connect performance data. We think that this is a very useful feature, but it's not a, part of this scope actually, but this, explain, how this service impact can really work, get all the necessary data. Yeah, so wrap up what do we have, so we, we already, in this meeting get a lot of input. Actually, we want to spin on this open issue to, to make an update for this draft, and also we, want to solicit more feedback on this draft so we can better, improve this draft and make more progress. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
All right, the next one is share your outage. So I want to thank the operator for coming here. It's not obvious to come here in front of the street and say we had a problem. However, it's for a good cause because we want to solve network anomaly incident and some cause, root or not. So thanks for sharing your story. Yeah, give me just 1 second. In the past, we had like a Swisscom incident, Bell Canada, NordGT, and again, Swisscom just after. And you will have the clicker soon. Yeah. Really?
Good morning. It seems to be too early for me. Holger Keller from DT. I'd like to present an incident we had last year. So it was in December last year. Let me start to explain a little bit. It happened in Germany, in the main part of our IP backbone. The location is in Munich and Nuremberg. We just found out we had a little typo here in the picture. It's of course not the same router at the top here. These are 2 different routers. It was a maintenance window on the early morning. We deactivated all connection from this router in Munich to Nuremberg, just for maintenance reasons. And we set the IGP metric, ISIS metric to 10 million, which basically puts out the links out of the routing. The maintenance took about 10 minutes. I don't know exactly what was done there, but after the 10 minutes, we put the links back into service. You can see that on the picture below, from inactive to active state. Active state means we have a metric less than 10 million, so it's back into routing. And this was done by our orchestrator. This is important because maybe it is because of how the orchestrator is working that this triggered a bug. We are doing it separately for every link, which also means we are doing a lot of commits on the router. For every link, we are doing one commit. So you find the change separately in the configuration if you look it up, which causes another problem. Because how do we detect the issue? After 20 minutes after we put the links back into service, we got customer complaints. We also saw it from an external data source that there's something wrong. From the change perspective, everything was correct. The workflow did not show any issue. So the colleague that did a change assumed everything was fine. No alarms was triggered in any monitoring system. And so, yeah, took 20 minutes to get aware of an issue. And then during the root cause analysis, the operator that looked into the incident had really issues to find the root cause as a change because of the lot of micro commits we are doing. He had to search a lot through the configuration to find the real issue. So it took him about 30 minutes to realize it was a change. And as a countermeasure, we rolled back every change. And this meant also that we rolled back all our BGP changes, BGP updates we already did on the day. This happened 10, 15 minutes before the link maintenance. But just as a safety, for safety reasons, they rolled back everything. So yeah, that was a problem. It was then detected, as I said, by an operator. And as we had already 2 times black holing in this year, he assumed it could be the same and then found the issue by looking into Ceph traces on the router. The issue is we triggered a bug by reapplying the ISIS metric. The next hop ID from the egress side was not in sync to the ingress side to the egress side. So when a packet came into the router on the ingress side, it was forwarded to the egress side, but the next hop ID was invalid, and so the packet got dropped internally. Yes. So, and what did we learn? As you saw on the picture, we have a lot of ECMP paths, and we really have issues to monitor ECMP paths. This is complex and very yeah, it's complex. So it's normally black holing is a rare case. We had it 3 times in the last year, so we can now discuss if this really is a rare case anymore. Because black holing also has a high impact. We called it top urgent. It means it's the highest class of incident we can have with more than 16,000 customers that are have issues then, or yeah, whatever. Since then, we looked into STAMP and TWAMP, if this is probably helpful for us. We're still analyzing that because it's not easy to implement probing. And yeah, from our point of view, there needs to be something done on ECMP side. This is still something that is not easy to monitor. And yeah, from our point of view, we need a better insight on ECMP. That's basically it. And now open to questions. I think I need to be fast for Thomas.
So just going to question is, did you have any drop counters on the devices to show the black holing?
No.
As in there was no counters going up, or you weren't monitoring any?
We did not see something. It was really only seen by the show Ceph trace, even only the trace. There was a message in the trace of Ceph.
Yeah. So that seems like another bug. I'm not sure it's a root cause, but a separate issue in terms of not being able to increment your drop count is not a good idea.
I just want to understand, because earlier you said that from your side during the maintenance window, everything looked okay, but from the customer side there were issues. So which KPIs or which metrics did you check to say, okay, on my side, everything is okay?
We are doing an ISIS adjacency check. And normally we are also doing a ping, but in this is also an issue of this workflow. We just realized that during the analysis, normally we are doing a ping if we are activating a connection. But in this workflow where we only put back a metric that we already had before, we did not check that, but probably wouldn't have helped here. So yeah, we're looking deeper into that, how we can improve that.
Thank you.
So very good. Thanks for sharing. So yeah, that's
Thomas?
Yeah, was okay. You want to go first? Okay, So thanks for sharing. So yeah, T1 on ECMP, that's difficult because you don't have the hash function, so you never know which path you're going to have. That's an issue. That's why maybe the idea to have IP fix on all interfaces and looking at forwarding status. If the forwarding status would be dropped in that case, which I'm not sure.
We already discussed that.
Oh, okay.
We are also not sure. Yeah,
okay.
We need to look into that. Yeah.
But thanks for sharing. This is like a tough one because sometimes we do assurance for incident. And in this case, it's an incident which I believe is a bug. So it's even more complex, right? Thanks for sharing.
Right, to follow up on Rob and what you just said. So first on Rob's comment, I think it's not only that we see the drops, but we need also to bring the drops into context of the links and also to the ECMP path. And then to follow up on Benoit, depends on the capture point on the router, whatever you're capturing at ingress or egress, so depends on where the drop is happening.
So basically you saw it with the Ceph information, you saw the applied next hop ID, and on the Ceph trace you saw there was another next hop ID. That was, I don't know if there is any counter that we can see that or an event. So that was the way how we found it. Looking at the current installed next hop ID and what we saw in the trace.
And spoiler alert, the incident I will be presenting is very much related, not on MPLS, but on SRv6.
Oops. Rudi Volk. One idea that comes up for me, and I'm not sure whether that's doable and works actually. My faint memories from electric engineering, there is the Kirchhoff rule, which means you have an equilibrium between what's coming into a node and what's going out. And quite obviously, there are internal sources and internal sinks in a network node, but kind of trying to monitor that equilibrium might be a way for detecting that kind of stuff.
Yep. Lionel, I guess.
Just Andrew Stone, Nokia. Yeah, it's the monitoring the equilibrium. I kind of wonder here if IP fix flow analysis might have been one way to kind of see, I've got stuff coming in, but it's going nowhere. Do you think that might have assisted with this, if there's a way of analyzing that data and detecting those patterns? Maybe, maybe not. But.
Not sure.
All right, so the queue is closed. Actually, it was closed like a few minutes ago. It's a good reminder that we need to get in the queue, by the way. But Lionel was in the queue for some time.
Yes, thanks. Thanks for the presentation. retrospectively, do you have any idea on what were the KPIs and knowledge representation you wish to have to capture all these incidents as a signature?
We didn't discuss this really with the ops team. I think they have some, but we need to talk to them again because they already also complained about what we are doing in the orchestrator, and we just got the discussion going when we asked, hey, we want to present something here at IETF. What do you have? And then they said, oh well, and by the way, we don't like this and that, and so we just started the discussion. So no, I can't. I don't have a KPI yet.
Okay, thanks.
Thomas.
Yes, thanks. So this time I will basically show an incident which we are actually actively provoked. So basically we are testing now not only in a lab environment, we are testing in a production environment. This is for network analytics very exciting because you can sit in front of your monitoring system while you observe how the incidents are happening in the network. And some things went very planned, some things were not planned, so stay tuned. Maybe you have to. Good. So I will show there will be several use cases. So we went through several changes in the network. And this is just a high-level view what anomaly detection saw. And the actual issue which happened then basically that was unplanned happens at the very end. That was the last use case that we tried out. So in terms of network topology in use case 1, there were we taken out some links between the PE and the CE. And in use case 2 also, but in a different VPN to a different platform, where in use case 3, we are taking links out of the between the P and the PE nodes, where in use case 4 and 5, we are restarting the BGP and the ISIS process of a PE, where in use case 6, we are actually restarting the route processor on a PE node. So let's go through the different use cases and how we observe that in the in network observability. So this is the use case 1 where we have interruption A from the PE towards CE. These are the operational metrics where we can see the topology changes and the traffic shift among the links, and that we don't have any impact on the connectivity service itself due to the redundancy. Where this before I showed the operational metrics, so this is now the analytical metrics. So this is what the software, the machine observed. So it observed the changes in the network, had a slightly elevated so-called concern score. So something has changed in the network, but it appears not to have really impacted the connectivity service. So far, so good. Now, in the use case 2, different VPN, different option A, peering between PE and CE. Here we can also see basically the traffic shift from one node to another node. And these are the analytical metrics. So far, so good. Same result as we've seen before. In the use case 3, so here now basically we are also doing interface state changes, but this time between the P and the PE node, so within the core. And very similar to what we've seen before, we see the topology changes in the overlay. And also we can see the traffic shift. And there is a small impact in the connectivity service on the overlay due to the reconvergence of the network. looking from the analytical metrics side, so the small connectivity impact in the overlay was also observed on the anomaly detection side. Therefore, the concern scoring is now much more higher. So there was a topology change in the network, and it had briefly a negative impact on the connectivity service. So therefore, we are, as a network operator, are slightly more concerned than the previous case, which did not have any impact on the connectivity service. Now, things getting more interesting. So restarting a BGP process on a PE node. These are the operational metrics. We can see clearly that there was topology changes. We can see from a connectivity service perspective in the forwarding on the bytes and on the flow count that we don't have any negative impact. And we see redundancy worked as expected. We were shifting the traffic between different PE nodes, so all good. And from an analytics side, we see that there are more things happening in the topology changes. So we have peerings now restarting, topology changes are happening, and so on. However, there was no impact on the connectivity service, but due to the massive changes in the network, now the concern score is more elevated than it would be in the use case 1 and 2. Now, same thing, but now not on the BGP process on the very same router, now on the IS-IS process, so in the underlay. We see that since the PE node is no longer reachable in the IS-IS domain, it had impact in the overlay and we see that in the topology changes. However, those topology changes did not have any impact on the connectivity service on the forwarding itself. And we see that for a brief moment in time, there was some, let's say, traffic shift happening between the nodes. So the reconvergence was fairly quick. Now the analytics metrics show basically that due to the high amount of topology changes in the core, that we have now an elevated concern score, but there was no traffic impact on the forwarding. Now that's the most important one because that's the one which caused the most impact. So here we are on that very same PE node, we are restarting a route processor. So there is a route processor failover from the primary to the secondary route processor, and this did not work the way how the router was set up to. So we see that there are topology changes. We see that there are drops. We have missing traffic considerably for a longer period of time. And the traffic shift did not happen, so we have a black holing scenario. Looking from let's go a little bit deeper into the operational metrics. So we had before from Holger's presentation about where the drops are happening. Here we are looking on Yang push collected network processor counters. So we see that on the egress NPU, the drops are happening. Looking from an IPFix perspective, so Swisscom is capturing the packets at ingress. We do not observe at ingress basically the egress drops. And usually we see at ingress the egress drops. However, if those, let's say, egress drops are happening on the encapsulation at egress, basically the ingress network processor, the ingress line card, is unable to determine at egress that at the egress NPU at the encapsulation point there is a problem. And this is what were happening in here. So, however, what we could see is basically that there was a decreased amount of traffic on the connectivity service, or in other words, the PE who on the opposite side, who should have received the traffic, no longer received the traffic. So we could clearly see missing traffic on the connectivity service, but not the drops itself. So from the overall concern score is we are now more concerned than the previous ones due to the black holing scenario we have here. So we have missing traffic. We don't have the traffic drops because we were not able to observe them on IPFix. And we were not able to correlate them to the connectivity service. However, we were able to see the topology changes in there. Coming to the conclusions, and I think the big conclusion here is idealistically, a network operator wants to capture also at IPFix the egress counters. However, capturing at egress as well means we are duplicating data. So we have twice the amount of data. So idealistically, we don't want to capture all the packets at egress. We only want to capture the dropped packets at egress. So here, this is technically from a protocol, from an IPFix perspective possible, but from an implementation perspective, currently not supported on that platform. And we are looking now with the engineering teams to make whatever this is technically feasible, implementable on that hardware platform. And I would say that's it. I mean, another thing to mention here is that from a monitoring perspective, basically all the data was very quick available. So BGP in general, it took up to 2 or 3 seconds to have in the system. Interface counters within 60 seconds. And since we have aggregation in IPFix, up to 90 seconds. And then basically network anomaly detection took about up to 180 seconds to actually derive the conclusion. So we are well within the threshold which we are setting. So we are within the 2 or 3 minutes to actually detect such issues in our network. Any questions or comments?
Thank you very much. 2 things. Some of the use cases you have there are transient. The last one was longer. Do you look at the concern score duration as a way to see if it's transient or if this is like something bigger? Because even in the last example, your concern score was only 15 minutes.
That's very well spotted. Today not, but this is something we have on our roadmap.
Okay. And a second question, which is more for the working group here. So you're an author of multiple documents here about network anomaly. How do you see them fit in that architecture, in what could be improved?
Right. So tomorrow there will be the documents on the life cycle and on the semantics. And Vincenzo did on those output I'm showing in here, shows basically how it maps to the semantics in the documents.
Hi, Thomas. This is Prasad from Cisco.
Hi,
I had a couple of questions. One is, what's your tolerance for kind of the delays? Because you're monitoring across multiple subsystems like BGP, interface counters, IPFix. So are you okay if BGP topology updates are delayed by, let's say, a minute? Is your tolerance like 3 minutes? Would that be fair to say?
I'm not sure if I got the questions correct. So basically the tolerance in terms of how quick we are receiving the data?
Yeah.
So let's say that our golden rule is basically we are saying at Swisscom that after 7 minutes, the customer calls, and after 15 minutes, an incident is in the media. So therefore, we want to make sure that basically the analytical conclusions we are deriving in the network are in the range of 3, 4, maximum 5 minutes. So the data should be available within 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. And then the second question is, if there are multiple failures, typically when there's a serious issue, there is back-to-back failure. So within this range, do you handle that today? Is that something?
We already handled that. Basically for a given connectivity service, we are raising a unique ID for a relevant state. And then basically if multiple events are happening, we attribute them to the same relevant state.
Thank you.
Lionel?
Yes, thanks. Thanks, Thomas. Same question as to Holger. Retrospectively, do you have any insights on what are the KPIs and knowledge representation you wish to have to detect and share the issue as a signature?
Didn't quite that guy. Could you repeat that, Lionel, again? Sorry.
Yes, do you have any feedback on what are the KPIs and knowledge representation you wished to have to detect and share the issue as a signature to other stakeholders or practitioners?
Absolutely. So if you look at anomaly semantics, there is a section where we have basically the service defined, and there we want to bring the relationship from a knowledge graph perspective. So we want to show like the inventory topology, but also the network topology, and how basically that anomaly, that incident, that network incident affected in perspective of the knowledge graph. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. I'll go into that.
Sure.
Okay, so thank you, Thomas, for I would say for this presentation, which gave us, I would say, a good transition to the next point about I would say the knowledge graph. As you know, there are multiple drafts in the working group, and then there's a group of people who are interested on this. So there is some potential on this work, but this is something which is not, I would say, widely understood how this can be, I would say, useful for us. So the question for the working group is, do we want to do something here in NMOP? Nothing official at the first time, but just to, I would say, to socialize the work and see how we can take it from there, something concrete. So yeah, this is the open mic session, and please feel free if you have any comments on this.
Lionel?
Yes, hi everyone. So I have a dream is that we could share high-level description of networks and incidents such that we could improve the network design. And this is a very basic idea of my I wish to share. And for this, I know for sure, thanks to last 4 years of research work, that knowledge graphs is very nice. So feel free to comment.
So Lionel, Benoit speaking, did I understand correctly that you volunteer for the next I Share My outage?
Sorry, I didn't get you. I'm sure it's funny, but I don't understand.
You want me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we had Deutsche Telekom and Swisscom sharing an outage for the sake of sharing for the industry here and trying to improve. Since you are an operator, would you be willing to do the same thing? Because you have a dream to be sharing network incidents, right? I have also the same dream.
No, it's not about sharing a given incident. It's about the capability of sharing incidents. in such a way that Thomas or Brad or whoever wish to improve the networks, we have some understanding of how an incident goes with respect to a given infrastructure. And for sure, also, I know that we cannot share infrastructure details because we have privacy, business, and so on, reasons for that. But we should be able to share high-level details to provide a context with incidents.
Okay, thanks. Brad.
I think there's some value in having the discussion around the knowledge graphs and how the knowledge graphs can come together to help both from an operations aspect point of view, as well as design and potentially incident sharing across carriers as well. I think some of the discussion we've been having in the chat session goes towards some of that, right? In terms of ideally, in the end, what you want to present is something that is actionable to a NOC operator, rather than something that they need to go and actually research and investigate even further. Because the research and investigation takes a lot of time, which increases your outage times potentially as well. And a lot of Thomas's work is heading towards that direction as well, in terms of how do I get context about what's actually happening in the network, and make correlations or decisions based upon what you're seeing in the network, but also what is your own design rules, how are your design rules implemented, and marrying the two together. So I think there's value from a knowledge graph aspect point of view.
Thomas here, fully agree what Brad says, and I think we saw also in Holger's presentation, when an incident is happening, there are a lot of events, correlated things are happening, and for a human to see what is the relationship about those events and how they are related with each other is very much needed, and I think in this area the knowledge graphs could help a lot. So I would look very forward to see like an interim where we could discuss what are the possibilities and in which direction we should go as a working group.
Thank you. So Benoit, speaking as a contributor of one of the draft on the knowledge graph, I believe this is an interesting topic. I believe this is still the early stage. This is also something completely new for the IETF. So having an interim on a little bit of explaining what a knowledge graph is, how it could be useful, and trying in the end to link with a different incident, because as Thomas mentioned, it's all about linking the information. It's a dream to believe that we will have a single model, Yang or whatever model you have, that's going to combine everything. So it's early for the IETF, but I think it's about time.
Hi, Nacho from Telefonica. Well, I fully agree with what you just said, Benoit. I think this interim meeting will be very beneficial to keep this going. I see that there are many applications for knowledge graphs in network management. So perhaps we should start sharing our experience, our learnings in these use cases based on also implementations, open source prototypes. So yeah, I agree with what you just said and this interim meeting. Thank you.
And the last one, Diego.
My knee was not in a very, very good shape. No, simply to add that precisely about the timely decision here is that if you think about it, several of the aspects that we were discussing today will be simplified by the use of, or will be enhanced by the use of knowledge graphs. And the one that came to my mind is all this discussion we had about whether a cause is root or not, or whether what implies and what you stop and takes it out of the chain of control could be considered part of the consider what we normally call a root cause or not. And this could be an ideal use case that is very much connected to the current activities, and that would contribute to enhance what we are doing.
Thank you all. I believe that you got the conclusion. So thank you for joining this NMOP session. This was the first one. The one tomorrow afternoon, I think it's 3 p.m., will be focused on the hackathon. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Yeah. You must have a definition for it. Well, so